While it shouldn't have taken 13 long years before we finally got to say it, we're still happy to say that a new Ninja Gaiden title is finally less than a month away. Team Ninja and Platinum Games' collaboration is shaping up to be quite the action-adventure title, bringing back everything that we know and love about the franchise, while adding a few creative flourishes that can usher in a new era for its stylish gameplay loop. Ninja Gaiden 4 is bringing more than a new protagonist to the table, while the return of Ryu Hayabusa to the spotlight has been a long time coming. But if you're wondering if you should pick up a copy ahead of its release, we've put together a few things you might want to know before you do. Let's dive in. 1. An explosive new story. As a direct sequel to Ninja Gaiden 3, the story pits Ryu against Yakumo, a young man from a rival Raven-themed ninja clan who might share the same goals as his rival, but whose methods take him down a different path. They are slated to explore a dystopian take on Tokyo in the wake of a full-scale invasion by none other than the Dark Dragon, another returning mainstay from the franchise's past. The two men are helped along by some new faces, while taking on new and deadly threats as they carve a bloody path to their foe. The developer has been quite enthusiastic about how they've weaved in the pillars of the design philosophy into the game's narrative. And this one is sure to have you wondering what's going to happen next after each deadly fight. 2. Difficulty options. The developers are sure looking to make this one as appealing as they possibly can to a wide range of audiences. Franchise veterans know that a Ninja Gaiden title doesn't pull its punches, or swipe stabs and other ways to impose a grisly death. But newcomers to the franchise might not be ready to take on its brutal combat formula. Have no fear, since you have 4 different difficulty options at your play disposal, which you can switch between as you play through the game. More details are incoming as we go on. 3. For a true master of the craft. If you manage to finish the game on any of the difficulty options, you still have a very strong incentive to dive right back in, courtesy of Master Ninja Mode. It isn't a New Game Plus, rather you can't change the difficulty, it's a separate ultra-hard setting that switches things up by quite a margin. Expect a more aggressive enemy AI and a spike in the game's difficulty that might challenge even the most grizzled of veterans among you. Be prepared to bring your best builds and skills to the table if you want to take this on. 4. Hero Mode. For those of you who would like to dip your toes into the deep waters of a very elaborate combat system, Hero Mode is going to make that a possibility. It gives you an easier challenge, though not by much, while allowing you to automate a few crucial combat techniques like blocking and the like. It's there to give you some much needed training wheels, helping you fall into the rhythm of the game's combat before you take on a more challenging difficulty and understand what all the fuss about Ninja Gaiden 4 is truly about. 5. Game Pass. We now know that the game's slated to release on October 21st of 2025, but it's also going to be available day 1 on Xbox Game Pass. Only a few weeks left for longtime fans to finally dive in. As for us, we're just happy Ryu's back. 6. Goodies galore. If you're planning on pre-ordering the standard edition of the game, you're in for a treat, as there's a pretty cool skin that you can equip for Yakumo called the Dark Dragon Descendant skin. Deluxe Edition owners get even more, with additional Ninja Coin, which can be used in Tyron's training to unlock fresh techniques, a traditional skin for Ryu, the two Masters gameplay content, and a few very attractive weapon skins thrown into the mix. It's the perfect way to enjoy the nostalgia that performing an Izuna drop or a flying swallow is sure to bring, while learning the new ins and outs of a combat system that's already showing a lot of depth. 7. Design Pillars. The design pillars of adversity, cruelty, and constant change are woven into the game's narrative and, more importantly, its combat system. Ryu and Yakumo's uneasy relationship is already underlined by adversity, but the brutal combat that's a trademark of the franchise truly brings that sentiment home. Cruelty could be more of the Dark Dragon's area of expertise, but our two protagonists are sure to dish out some of it as they go about hacking and slashing their way through hordes of enemies who come at you all at once. Constant change could be a part of how the two men from rival clans come to confront their own assumptions about the other. and it's sure to be a part of the combat loop that requires you to stay on your toes and carve a path through enemy attacks that can have you seamlessly switching weapons and combos on the fly in order to dominate the battlefield. It's exciting stuff, really. 8. Dynamic enemy difficulty scaling. The enemy AI is slated to make adjustments based on your own prowess with the game's combat and the various difficulty options on offer, with placements, attack patterns, and general aggression being adjusted almost constantly while you go about your grim business. It's a kind of designer-guided challenge that could make combat a very immersive facet of the experience, something that the franchise has earned a reputation for in the past and will probably continue to manage with the new game. 9. If at first you don't succeed. If you're worried about pulling off complex moves in the heat of battle, Ninja Gaiden lets you dive into a newly introduced training mode. A franchise first, you can practice your moves and combos to your heart's content before unleashing your best skills on any hapless opponents who are bold enough to stand between you and the Dark Dragon. Practice does make perfect after all. 10. Perfect play. Dodging and parrying enemy attacks are going to be a crucial part of the stylish and brutal action this time around, with a perfect parry system in place that actually tells you when you've managed to pull one off. As any fan will tell you, these mechanics are significant enough to give you the upper hand. In a game where enemies constantly try to gang up on you, that makes us all the more curious to see how the best players out there will turn them to their advantage, a sentiment that's especially pronounced thanks to the next point on our list. 11. Parrying details. A well-timed block followed by a parry is standard these days, but in Ninja Gaiden 4, the real difficulty comes from crowd pressure, because perfect parries don't auto-counter. You can chain parries across multiple foes as long as your awareness doesn't slip. Team Ninja may still tune timings before launch, but early impressions suggest the window itself isn't the main hurdle. Consistency comes from awareness and decision-making, and you still have to choose and execute the follow-up like a proper ninja. 12. Ryu and Trials Mode. While we're sure that Ryu is going to be an important part of the story, with dedicated sections and the option to revisit him via chapter select, and act as a stepping stone for Yakumo to achieve his own self-actualization, he's also playable in the game's trial mode for those of you who just can't get enough of him. He comes with a more limited selection of weapons, but has his own Dragon Gleam mode to better match Yakumo's Bloodraven form. However, there's going to be a wider selection of weapons for our popular protagonist in the form of DLC content for the game, so brush up on all your skills with the ability to revisit levels that you've already completed and perhaps take on a boss or two as Ryu when you get the chance in Trials mode. 13. Photo Mode. If you want to capture your best kills in all their gory glory, you're going to have a great time with the game's photo mode. There's already a few incredible shots out there for you to find, and we're really excited to see what the game's community of players are going to do with it once it hits the shelves. 14. More frames, more style. Xbox Series X owners are going to be thrilled to know that there's a 120 FPS mode for those of you who have the displays to support it. While the Xbox Series S can't support that, owners of Microsoft's beefier console can enjoy a more fluid experience at the expense of slightly reduced visual fidelity. That's a worthy trade-off in a game that's focused on combat, in our opinion. It's also available on the PS5, and will most likely be an option for higher-end PCs once the game is in your hands. 15. PC system requirements. The minimum requirements include Windows 10 or 11 64-bit with an Intel Core i5-8400 or AMD Ryzen 5 3400G with 16GB of RAM. For graphics, you'll need an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 with 6GB of VRAM or an AMD Radeon RX 590 with 8GB of VRAM alongside DirectX version 12. You're also going to need a 16-bit 48kHz sound card and 100GB of SSD storage to run the game at 1080 30fps with low FSR and object quality. The recommended specs include a beefier Intel Core i5-10400, AMD Ryzen 5 3600, and NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060 Super with VRAM 8GB or an AMD Radeon RX 5700 XT with VRAM 8GB. The remaining specs stay the same, and will allow you to run the game at 1080 60 FPS with both FSR and object quality set to middle. And that's a wrap on everything you need to know about Ninja Gaiden 4 before you buy your copy and dive into a title that carries the weight of all the great titles that came before it. However, we believe that Ryu and Yakumo are going to live up to the challenge, and do so with style. We're going to be right at your side through the new adventure when it makes its way to our hands in October. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.